powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Jeff Mosher and Adam Caplan, who's here today. And when Adam's back next Tuesday, the Eagles will have reported to camp a week from today. We are looking at the Eagles' schedule, the final 5 opponents, week 14 through 18. We've been counting down the opponents with Adam Caplan as the Eagles will face, obviously, the Dallas Cowboys twice, and they'll be the first team we take a look back at here, Adam. But, yeah, this time next week, the boys will be back.
Yeah, I mean, they can't do anything other than have meetings. In the first 4 to 5 days of our acclimation period, which was put in the last CBA. Actually, it's more like the last 2 CBAs, where there's only so much contact and physical work you can do. So that the battles will really start, Mike, around the 30th of this month. And obviously going from there, the rest of training camp, the preseason, and those joint practices when the Browns come in for 2 days and the Colts come in for 1.
Yeah, obviously, counting down the days, 1 week. But, yes, they'll be in on Tuesday, but the stuff doesn't really start happening. And remember, there's 3 preseason games this year. Their first one, August the 12th. So we're really looking a little ways off before they get out back onto the field. But when they open up the season, we're looking at weeks 14 through 18 this time around, Adam. And obviously the Dallas Cowboys, they played them. They would have played them in week 9. This will be a Sunday night game. And this is a Cowboys team that obviously many people think it's them and the Eagles in the NFC East.
And Mike, this could be huge. You're talking about week 14 at the Cowboys. The Eagles hosted them in week 9. This could be for the division because the Cowboys, Mike, their roster's really good. You know, when we did that divisional series with Greg Cosell, we talked about Dallas, and Greg talked about it. The roster's really good. They had to upgrade at receiver. They did significantly with Brandon Cooks, and Gallup now is almost about a year and a half away from the ACL injury. He should be much better. The right tackle, Terrence Steele's coming back from an ACL injury, so that's a little bit of a concern. Tyron Smith is getting up there. He's back at left tackle. Tyler Smith is going to play left guard. He did a great job last year, by the way, playing left tackle. It was shocking. Nobody expected him to play as well as he did. Now, they don't have very good depth. That's a problem for them. And that Luke Schoonmaker, their second-round pick a couple weeks ago, he's a big dude. He's 6'5". He's more of what we call a wide tight end who could play in line, but he's a decent athlete. But now, to me, and I know Mike McCarthy's he's not known as a spread offensive play caller like Kellen Moore was, but when you've got Cooks, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb, you're going to spread the ball a little bit more. So I'm interested to see how that works out and how and if Dak Prescott could bounce back.
Yeah, and then, they added a couple pieces to the defensive side of the ball, and, how different is their defense going to look and, what they might do with Micah Parsons and how the defense goes to the next level.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, Dan Quinn is sort of morphed this into a hybrid scheme. He wants Parsons, though, playing with his hand down more, playing more traditional defensive end. Because, the last couple of years since Quinn came in there, he's moved Parsons around, and that's created matchups. So we'll see how they do that. They add Stephon Gilmore. Trayvon Diggs, he makes plays. He gives up plays. Jordan Lewis is back as their nickel. Deron Bland was a great story for them. They're probably one of the deepest teams in the National Football League at corner. They're also good at safety. Malik Hooker's finally healthy. Donovan Wilson, their strong safety, is really good. He's not what you call an all-pro, but he's just a step below. So, Mike, this defense, if healthy, is very strong. They're just okay at linebacker. Remember last year they were very weak up the middle. They get Mozzie Smith, first rounder. They've got good depth at D tackle, Mike. So it's between them. It's between the Cowboys and the Eagles. It's very close. I don't know what happens to this Cowboys team once they get to the playoffs, Mike. But on paper, they're really, really good.
Yeah, it's going to be a neck-and-neck fun season between those two. You can see that. A team that might be fun. They surprised a lot of people last year, and it's very tough to make that trip to Seattle, where the Seahawks are plus 195 to win the NFC West. Their over-under win total, last year this is a team that won 9 games last year. So you got Geno Smith, kind of came out of nowhere last year, put himself in the MVP conversation. So can Geno Smith and the Seahawks repeat last season's bounce back year for them? And a lot of people thought they might have been the worst team in the league last year.
I thought Jacksonville was going to be bad. So what do I know? I mean, I got some of these futures right, but the one I missed on Bailey was Jacksonville. But Seattle, yeah, week 15 late in the season, kind of like in 2017. Remember, they lost there and then they won at the Rams the next week. The Eagles did. You know, the Seahawks are plus 195 to win the NFC West. Over 8.5, I believe, is minus 140. Because they're going to be somewhere over 9. They were 9-8. They're not going to catch up to people. I know the Cardinals are going to be terrible. They'll be probably worse than last season. But if you look at that division, Mike, the Rams get a healthy Matthew Stafford back. They're not a playoff team, but they'll be better. But overall, the Seahawks are sort of a middling team. They backed into the playoffs. Had the Rams beaten the Seahawks, and by the way, they outplayed the Seahawks in Week 18. There were 3 to 4 bad calls that went against the Rams, or the Rams would have won. Remember, the Lions won that Sunday night game. That would have knocked the Seahawks out, and the Lions would have gotten in. So in the end, Mike, the Seahawks, I give them credit. Geno Smith was the most improved player in the National Football League last season. No one saw this coming. It's crazy. If you go back to 2013, he was Chip Kelly's pick to be the quarterback for the Eagles, and then they backed off. After they visited with them, they didn't have a good visit, so that changed everything. And you look at the running back position for the Seahawks going forward. Kenneth Walker was a good story, but they drafted another running back, Mike, in the second round, Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. So if you play fantasy football, I don't know how you balance that. That's kind of tough. So that would concern me a little bit.
Looking at the Seahawks in Week 15, and then the Legion of Boom. They were always known for their defense, but defense was not their strong suit last year. So this could be a day where Jalen Hurts has some shots down the field.
Well, they did draft Devin Witherspoon, a corner from Illinois. He's very aggressive. Tariq Woolen was awesome as a rookie, runner-up for Defensive Rookie of the Year. They could probably use a little bit better depth, but they're going to get Jamal Adams back from a severe knee injury. That'll help them. Bobby Wagner's back. They run a 34 now as one of their inside linebackers. The big signing was Draymond Jones, a terrific underrated pass rusher. Now they're not very good at defensive tackle. They're really weak. That's their biggest position. So the Eagles will probably run against them when they can't. I mean, they should be successful when they run it. And look, you want to spread Seattle out, as I was talking about. They're not real deep. And the Eagles now, if Zacchaeus is a player, the Eagles also could spread them out with 3 receivers.
Yeah, so Seahawks Week 15. Giants, they're in the news a lot this week. We don't know what they're going to look like with this Saquon Barkley stuff. Yeah. But Week 16, Giants will be here in Philadelphia. Over under 7.5 wins. They might be playing to get to that number here in week number 17. This might be a game that bettors are waiting to see if the Giants hit that over or not.
Yeah, and this absolutely, because of the market, this is the first of 2 games. They play the Giants in Week 18. This absolutely could be flexed. This certainly could be something they could look at, depending on how they want to deal with this. So, look, Daniel Jones was a surprise. Well, I don't want to. He improved. I don't want to say he's a big surprise, but thing is he stopped turning the ball over, and they did run the ball. Now with Saquon Barkley, I know he's upset. He said it is what it is on Twitter. The bottom line is, he's not going to miss $600,000 per game. There was one guy who did it, and he did it for a whole season. Le'Veon Bell, who, by the way, admitted he was wrong. He should have stayed with Pittsburgh. So the run, their offense starts and ends with Barkley, and Daniel Jones works well off that. And obviously, Jones is part of the run game, super explosive in a straight line, as the Eagles could attest to. But to me, and their offensive line, talking to the Giants, they feel really good about it. They had 3 offensive linemen suffer major knee injuries last season, and they're better receiver, by the way. Their roster is better. But the thing is, to me, and they were 9-7-1, Mike. They're going to be around a 500 team when we really look at it.
Yeah, that Giant team. We'll see what happens with Saquon Barkley. It has been a mess there. And then their defense. Do we think their defense will be any better? I like the Waller addition, by the way, on the offensive side of the ball. At least gives them somebody in the middle of that field. But their defense last year, will they be improved defensively?
By the way, so my piece for ProFootballNetwork.com one of my stories was on Darren Waller, we should mention, and why the Raiders were the aggressor and why they tried to trade him. Yeah, it is really weird, Mike, with Waller. He was traded 6 months after he signed an extension with the Raiders. That is bizarre. Now, let's move to defense, as you mentioned. They have a really good front with Dexter Lawrence. Leonard Williams is really good. They added Ashawn Robinson. Nunez Roches comes over for the Bucks. They give him a massive contract for a backup. They bring in Bobby Okereke, who's a really good inside linebacker. They run a 34. They don't have very good depth. They're better at corner. They were not good there last season. Deonte Banks is the first rounder out of Maryland. They get Adoree Jackson back, who's really fast. This is a contract year more or less for him. Now, remember, Xavier McKinney had that SUV accident, so now he's totally over it. And they added Imani Oruwariye from Penn State, who played for the Lions for a while. So they're better at corner. This roster's above average, not great. Their offensive line, they're feeling better about it because they have better depth. Now, look, Mike, the NFC East was the only division in the NFL last season to not have a team with a losing record. So despite what people say about this division, it's not bad. Moshe and I and Cosell talked about this in our divisional series. The division is actually better. The talent level is better. Now, obviously, health is an issue for the Giants at certain positions. But the question is, now, if Darren Waller is an X factor and Deonte Banks is good at corner, this team has a chance to push for a wild card. They're not going to win a division, but they have a chance to push for the wild card.
All right, Adam Caplan, football at 4, week 17, a team that I think nobody thinks is pushing for a division or a wild card is Arizona. And, this is a team that people liked. 2 years ago, Murray was in the MVP race. They looked like they were a team on the up and up. And then all of a sudden, they have just taken a complete downturn. Odds makers way down on this team. 4.5 over-under here.
Mike, look, last year we all got it wrong. The odds makers had the Jaguars over under 5.5. Everybody got it wrong. If this team wins 8 games, Jonathan Gannon with a losing record at 8-9 should be coach of the year. They got problems at quarterback. They don't know exactly when Kyler Murray's going to be back. Their hope is by the end of September he'll be back, coming back from his ACL injury. The receiver-wise, remember they cut DeAndre Hopkins. They're not very good there. They have a bottom 10 offensive line. They need pass rushers. They don't have enough of them. They're running a 34 in defense, Mike. They're not very good at corner. Remember, they let their best corner, Byron Murphy, walk. I don't see how they overcome this, Mike. I feel like the odds makers are right. And when you look, Mike, at their over-under, it's comical. First of all, let's start 25 plus 2,500 to win the West. I put them at plus 10,000. That's my personal line. And think about this. To take the over, Mike, you actually plus 100 because I don't even think they don't think they'll get 5 wins or more. And by the way, they were 4-13 last season.
Yeah, and obviously Murray is out. Who's going to start at quarterback for this team?
Right, and also, it'd be Colt McCoy, but also they have the youngest defensive coordinator tandem. Drew Petzing, I think, is 35 years old, who's a protege of Kevin Stefanski, and their defensive coordinator Nick Rallis, the former Eagles linebackers coach, I think just turned 30. Mike, think about that. And I believe the word is that Rallis will actually call the plays. Gannon, we'll see. I know he's very close to these guys. That's a big, big gamble.
And then, obviously you've got Gannon, a defensive-minded guy. What's their offense even going to look like?
It's probably, Mike, from what I understand, Petzing's going to run Stefanski's offense, probably heavy 12 personnel, which means 2 receivers, 2 tight ends. Zach Ertz coming back from his ACL injury, and Trey McBride, who was the highest drafted tight end last season, who was the second round out of Colorado State, didn't do much as a rookie. But yeah, and because they're weak at receiver, Mike, look, yeah, it makes sense. And Paris Johnson, who we had reported was if it wasn't Jalen Carter, had Paris Johnson been there, they probably would have drafted Paris Johnson to play guard, believe it or not. But doesn't matter now. So in the end, Mike, this is a bad football team on paper, but we've been surprised before.
Well, and just think about it. You mentioned Zach Ertz. He got traded there 2 years ago because they were going for it. They thought they were right there, so they trade Ertz there. Now he's stuck on a team that is essentially where the Eagles were when they traded him to Arizona. That's how fast things change in this league. Last game of the year, Week 18, the Giants are back. They're at MetLife this time. We don't know what this game might mean, but by the end of the year, this game might mean nothing for both teams here.
Right. In fact, the time is not set as they do this for Week 18. So, yeah, and the question would be for Week 18. I guess it could. The Eagles, they had a cleanse before Week 18 last year. Well, wait a minute. Did they have to play the starters in Week 18? I forget. Didn't they have a mini losing streak or something happened where they had to play the starters late? I forget. In that Giants game, did they, Mike, late in the regular season, the Eagles have to play their starters? If I'm not mistaken.
The last year, the last game of the season, I'm trying to remember. Wasn't it who started that game? Did Minshew? No. Did Minshew play in that game?
I'll tell you right
Hurts
now,
played.
Mike.
Hurts played. And the Eagles won that game.
Yeah, it was against the Giants, right? They didn't play well. Remember, they had to play them. They had to play the starters because they needed it. In fact, they played their starters in that game. Yeah, no, they definitely needed it. But the chances are it probably would mean something because the division will be tighter. And then one thing the Giants have to look at, Mike Kafka interviewed for the Cardinals job, former Eagles quarterback, who's their offensive coordinator. And Wink Martindale actually interviewed for that head coaching job that went to Daboll. So it's pretty interesting that Wink Martindale's an excellent defense coordinator. Mike Kafka did a good job. He calls the plays and runs. He puts together the passing game concepts. So this is an interesting situation here. And of course, the big story obviously is with Barkley. And the one thing before we get out of here, Matt Breida's more of a third down back. He can't handle a lot of carries. They've got Eric Gray out of Oklahoma, who probably would get a decent amount of carries if Barkley shocked me and didn't show up to Week 1. But the reason why, Mike, one of the many reasons why I think Barkley will show up Week 1, these guys don't want to let their teammates down. They know without Barkley, they can't go anywhere. They just have to have him.
All right, Adam Caplan, our look at the Eagles' schedule. We went through all the opponents. Next week, they'll be at training camp. And obviously, the guys have been breaking down all the training camp battles and key questions over at InsideTheBirds.com and the new Inside the Birds podcast. Guys, getting ready for the in-season schedule here soon. I'm sure you guys will be amping up for training camp. Adam and Jeff here, football at 4, Andrew on Thursday here on the Sports Bash. Adam, take care, buddy.
Thank you.
Adam Caplan, everybody, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.